What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to yet again another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I'm your host, and let's get into this episode. First, let's do some quick housekeeping. If you have not done so yet, hit this subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, hit the review, provide some value for the value in exchange that you get. I hope that if you're listening to this podcast, that this will continue to bless you, that will continue to encourage you. And that no matter where you are across this world, that this kind of positivity that we're hoping to cultivate in this podcast will give you just that little nudge, just that little piece of what you need to make it to your next day, your next goal, your next whatever. So the topic that I want to talk about today is really what I learned from going to 2 funerals in 1 week. Yeah, that's right. I had last week. It was a pretty challenging week. It was a rough week. Had 2 funerals, and both people passed away, I would say, pretty suddenly and unplanned. It wasn't that these individuals were, in their late, adult year. They weren't in their 70s or 80s or whatever, and it wasn't that they just died kind of natural causes, but both were pretty sudden. One was actually a very, very close family member. And way too young, in his mid 30s. And I realized that, and I'm actually 30. So that one hit very, very close to me. Especially once you start to have people around you pass away that are in your age range, you realize every day that too could be you. I think when you grow up, you often, as a young person, could look to older people and, terrible mindset to have, but you could say, oh, like that's supposed to happen. Somebody dies at 80 and 85. It's like, oh, okay, like they lived a nice full life. That's what's supposed to happen. But when you start to see people die close to you in age or in relationship, it has a pretty significant impact on you. And what I realized was that this week was that I went to both of the funerals. I had a funeral on Monday and I had a funeral on a Friday. So I literally started the week with a funeral and ended the week with a funeral. And and the time in between then almost felt like a fog. And for me, funerals have a way of reminding me what life is and the importance of it and what really matters and what doesn't matter. And that's what I really want to be able to extract for you in this episode today, is what I extracted from both of these funerals that helps me to live my life more audaciously, because things that we often think are important, we realize that at the end of our lives, they were not important at all. And people who you thought were very important, you realize at the end of your life that they were not important at all. And I was able to extract some of these insights and some of these points from the 2 funerals that I went to. So I want to get to one of the things, and I'm going to kind of just flow here. And so one of the first things that I pulled from both of the funerals is that the people that would be at my funeral, based on the 2 people whose funerals that I was at, would be only the people that I had personally and individually impacted the most. The people that would actually be there to celebrate my life would not be people that I made the most money with. It wouldn't be people that I spoke with. It wouldn't be someone that hit a like on my Instagram or put a comment on an Instagram or YouTube video or left a raving review on my podcast. It wouldn't be a customer of mine that spent a bunch of money. It wouldn't be any of those people. The only people that would be at my funeral were people that really impacted and was impacted by the life that I lived, that really had a individual relationship with me to the point that they truly miss me not being in their lives. They truly didn't realize the true impact that I had until I was gone. Like those will be the people that will be at my funeral. Those will be the people that will celebrate me the most, will be the people that I built intentional relationships with. And so for me, that was a big point, because I think I can often personally be transactional sometimes with people, because I'm always, heads down, focused on the next thing, trying to accomplish, trying to build something. And sometimes you could really be transactional with people and not necessarily be present. And I started to think for myself, if I filtered out everybody that I've made really deep, emotional, impactful relationships with versus the people that I was transactional, there's a small group of people that I've built really deep, connected relationships with. And so I started to think like, how many people would actually be at my funeral? And not because I want a big funeral, but because I want to live a life to be known for what I gave and not what I accumulated. That's my main goal in life, is to be known for what I gave people, and not what I accumulated for me. And so that's the first thing that I realized. The second thing that I realized, about going to these 2 funerals in a week, that your life ends very humbly, no matter how successful you were. Your life will end very humbly, no matter how successful you were. Now, in today's day and age, and this could be a little graphic, right? But you've got only a couple of ways that you can go out, right? You've got, I believe, cremation. You could have typically 2, right? You could be either cremated, or you can, be buried in the ground. That's it. That's all you got. You got those 2 ways that you're going to go out. You came into this world naked, and you will go out of this world in a casket or in an urn, right? And so what it said to me is that all the stuff that you do in between that time goes back into the middle of the table. What do I mean by that? Like all the accoutrements, all of the success, all the money, everything that you're building, everything that you're working to build in life, all those things go back to the middle of the table to then be divvied up by the other people. If hopefully you create some kind of wealth that can be passed on from one generation to the next, and you can leave an inheritance for your children's children. But when your race is up, when your time is up, all of the puzzle pieces, all of the chips go right back into the middle of the table, and you die a very humble life. You die a very humble way. And you often, right, are placed, in a grave amongst other people, right, that probably could have lived better lives, right? You may be placed in a grave with people that died with your dreams and all that kind of stuff. But you die very humbly. You come into this world very humble, and you die very humble. And so why, during the process of getting from life to death, do we try to live so extravagant? Why do we try to, build all these accoutrements? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't and can't be interested in things, because I love stuff. I love nice things. But it helped me to really frame up the importance and why I thought certain things were important, and realizing that, man, this person could have $1 million in the bank, but they died in the same kind of casket that the person that didn't have any money in the bank did. They went to the same funeral home. They went to the same cemetery, right? So that's one, or that's the second one. The third thing that was really interesting was that I realized how important it is to make sure that everybody knows in my life who they are and what they are to me. Because the minute that you are not there to provide roles and to give labels on things is the minute that people have to assume who they were and what they were. And in the time of death, right, it can be challenging when people are trying to assess how they can support you, how they support your family, what they may need to do, if it's getting your affairs in order, all that kind of stuff. Having a will and all that. If people don't know who they are and what they are to you, then it would actually cause more confusion in your going than not. And so not only when you pass away, but when you live a life, when you're living life, I want to be specific about who people are in my life and what they are in my life, what they mean to me, what space they hold in my life. I don't want anyone to be unsure of what I felt by their presence or what their relationship meant to me. I don't want that to be of guessing. I want to be intentional about letting people know who they are and what they are to me, and not have to settle it out when I'm no longer here and get into arguments and all that kind of stuff. Like, here's what you were to me, and this is the place that I like to hold as a container for you in my life is from one of the things that I grasped and one of the things that I learned. Fourth one, I realized that after you die, people will forget about you. They will forget about you, even the people that you love the most. And when I say forget about you, yes, you will always hold a place in their hearts. They will always, when called on or thought about, they will think about you, and it may be periodically, but you will eventually become an afterthought to them. Your life is nothing but a vapor, and as long as you're around and as long as you're present, you can be present and available for those people, is as long as you will be at the forefront of their mind. But the minute that you are gone, your existence is going to be a mere afterthought for them. And so as I go about my life today, why would I make individual decisions based on someone else's opinion when I know that often they won't be at my funeral, or if they are, my existence will be a mere afterthought a couple of weeks after I'm no longer here on earth? Why would I live my life waiting for other people to give me approval? Why would I live my life waiting for other people to tell me what I could and couldn't do? Why would I hold space for people that will not think about me much later after I leave this earth? And so it really gave me perspective, right? Is that often we are so guided by opinions and by thoughts and by other things that influence us, influence who we are, what we build, how we build it, what we think about ourselves, what we think about our life. We're so influenced by that. Instead of being intentional about what actually fulfills you and what actually makes you happy, we can be so intentional about what it is to just satisfy and please other people. And the truth is, those people will only think about you a couple of weeks later, and they may think about you on the the anniversary of your death, or on your birthday, or on the anniversary of some whatever holidays, all that kind of stuff. And I'll end at this because I got probably 10 or 15 that I could do, but I'm in with this fifth one here. Is the fifth thing that I really gleaned and really took from this was how important it is to make sure that you have people set up for success, that you have and live a life built to support the people that you want to support most. Because if all the chips go back into the middle and to be divided up, I want to make sure that when the things are being divided, that they are divided in a way that honors the people that I love most. And that honors, because the truth is, and here's why it's important. Because the truth is, every generation that you go to get away from something, the thing gets less and less important. For example, if I love my dogs. I've got 2 Dobermans, one named Enzo, my male, and one named Aria, my female. And Enzo and Aria, they're my folks. They're my dogs. They're my pups. And my wife, she loves the dogs, but she doesn't love them like I love them, right? She feeds them, but she doesn't take them on walks. She's not taking them on parks. She wasn't the one that trained them. She doesn't know them as well as I know. And their relationship with her isn't like their relationship with me, right? I know for sure that if I passed away tomorrow, that there would have to be some kind of plan to determine what's going to happen to the dogs. Why? Because her love for them is not the love that I've got for them. Same thing with my kids, right? If I left the dog, my kids are too young, right? But if my kids were old enough to take care of the dogs, those were my dogs and not their dogs. So, how someone loves a thing, it drops, it loses, validity the further and further you get from the person that it's coming from, right? So same thing is true, and I use that as an example, but the same thing is true when it comes to your money. The money that you worked hard to make, to create, to build up wealth for yourself, first generation for you, it was important. You pinched everything you could. You were efficient. You saved. You invested. You got super smart, super savvy, and you built wealth. You did the thing. You built it. You were the pioneer. But the person that's the recipient is not going to think about it the same way you thought about it. They're not going to love it like you loved it because they didn't build it like you built it. And so the $1 million for them is like, oh, it's cool to have. It's a nice thing, but it's not as important as you made it. And so even though you do pass things down, the stuff that you're passing down loses its value to the people you're passing it down to. And what is sometimes hard to realize is that so many of us, and I talk about it often, talk about what it is to build legacy and what it is to create a legacy. And often we subscribe legacy with wealth and with being able to pass down wealth from one generation to the other, or being able to set a generation up that can go further in life than maybe we were ourselves, right? I want my children, I want Zane and I want Zara, my children, I want my ceiling to be their floor. I want them to be able to start where I finished. I want them to be able to take the baton and run with it. But guess what? What if they don't want the thing that I built? What if I start a business and grow a very successful business? Not if, but when, and I'm growing it now. What if this business they don't want, right? And what if they actually aren't passionate about it? We see this all the time. It happens, second generation, often you store up and create all the wealth in first generation. And I believe the statistics are like 80% or something like that. Second generation blows the money, right? Like there's a very small percentage of second generation that actually is able to keep the wealth because they didn't actually build the resources, the love, the passion, the grit, and determined and that they needed to actually sustain the wealth. They weren't a part of the journey. They weren't a part of the buildings. They just was the recipient. And so that was a very important part for me because it helped me realize what I was building and why I was building it and what would be the response for people once they got the thing that I had built. And it could be an heirloom, right? It could be, a car or a necklace. Like I've got a necklace from my deceased father, and it's very important to me because I believe it was important to him. And it was an investment. It's gold. It's a nice chain, right? But even though it's important to me, I'm not sure. And it's really important to me. I'm not sure that it is as important to me as it was to him, the one who worked hard to save up to actually buy it. And so I just want to leave you with that. Like I said, I had 2 funerals in 1 week, and there were tons of insights, tons of things that I had gathered and gained from that experience. And funerals are never easy, but I think what you can always do is always look for things to learn and take with you on your journey, on your path, to be able to help you make the best of your life and live the life that you've got left with full, audacious intention to be successful and accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish in life. And that is what making the pivots are all about. That's what this podcast, the Pivot Mindset Podcast, is all about, is finding ways, finding things to be able to take, develop, and make your own pivots and make your own shifts, all right? And so that's what I've got for you today. I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm excited to continue to grow this. Thank you for being loyal and being a loyal listener. Again, remember to give this podcast a rating and review if you enjoyed it. We'd love if you would actually take a screenshot on your phone and put it in your Instagram stories or put it in your Facebook stories or wherever you do social media, TikTok, etc. And so thank you again. And remember, life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Peace.